Sup my dudes, Valkyrja, and today I'm going to be talking about my best 5 weapons in the game, or at least what I think is the top 5 weapons in the game, in my opinion. Keep in mind, there's no actual metric to go by this, it's just what I think are probably the most powerful weapons in the game. But you guys are more than welcome to disagree with me. That being said, let's go ahead, let's get into it. So very first up at number 5, we have Engulfing Lightning. Now I know what you guys are going to be thinking, Valk, how is a weapon that's made for pretty much one character in the top 5 best weapons of the game? Because it is just that good. So this weapon, Engulfing Lightning, changes Raiden's dynamic fully. It changes exactly how she functions, and it makes her an absolute monster. This weapon plus C2, which is one of the strongest constellations in the game, makes her an absolute beast. And what Engulfing Lightning does is 608 base attack, 55 energy recharge as a substat, attack increased by 56% of energy recharge over base 100%. You can gain a maximum bonus of 120% attack, gain 50% energy recharge for 12 seconds after using an elemental burst. For R1 stats, it's 26% attack increase, 60% attack, and then you gain 25% energy recharge. Could be wrong, but it tends to be half of it, so it could be wrong, I guess, on the R1 stats, but somewhere around there. But the reason this weapon's in my top 5 is because this weapon is so strong on its own that it allows Raiden Shogun to actually, even at R1, it allows Raiden Shogun to actually completely forgo an energy recharge sands and build into attack, to where you just get so much more damage out of it due to the second part of the passive, where you gain X amount of energy recharge for 12 seconds after using elemental burst, and that energy recharge gained from this weapon also feeds back into the first passive, so you get a huge amount of attack boost while you are bursting, because you also have the ER substat that feeds back into attack. Any polearm character that comes out that desperately wants a lot of ER, this weapon is going to be so good on, but it's especially good on Raiden Shogun, mostly due to this passive right here. The fact that each 1% of energy recharge that the Raiden Shogun possesses grants her X amount of electro damage bonus based on how much energy recharge you have. So you end up some really wacky stats, like for example with my Raiden, just naturally she's at 133 electro damage bonus. It is a very strong weapon. Right now it's super niche, but it is so damn good at that niche. Next up, we have Thrilling Tales of the Dragon Slayers. What this weapon does is it increases base attack and HP as a substat, and when switching characters, the new character taking the field has their attack increased by 48% for 10 seconds. This effect can occur only once every 20 seconds. Why is this so good? Because the Catalyst category has a bunch of units that function well off the field. This is also a 3-star weapon, so it's very easy to get at R5, which is why I'm not even going to talk about R1 with this weapon. And literally anyone can use it. The amount of flexibility to this weapon, the fact that it just allows you to buff your main DPS. If your main DPS is a Catalyst user, odds are you really don't want this weapon. Instead, you'll opt into probably a 5-star option, or maybe even one of the 4 stars like Widsith. Widsith is incredibly powerful as well, but Widsith's a little RNG on the RNG side, so it's not making the list. But this weapon right here is just so flexible, and the fact that it is a 3-star just makes it insanely valuable inside, for my opinion. And that's why I put this at my number 4 spot in my top 5 weapons, because this weapon goes on virtually anybody. You don't even need to level this weapon, because you can let this weapon sit like I have it right now, R1, and just throw it on a character because it's doing its job just fine then. The character's not meant to deal damage that has this weapon, it's just meant to swap out and give your main DPS a 48% attack buff, which is absolutely huge. And then at number 3, we have literally any of the sacrificial weapons. Now, what do I mean? You can see here I have 2 R5 sacrificial weapons, 1 because I'm a whale, and 2, I just can't bring myself to throw the sac swords out because they're so damn good. You have a sacrificial sword, sacrificial greatsword, you have a sac bow, and then you have sacrificial fragments, which is the catalyst. There is no sacrificial polearm, because then it would make certain characters very powerful. But this weapon is so good that it actually can offset the amount of attack and stuff you lose for running a sacrificial weapon rather than running a DPS oriented weapon. So what the Sacrificial series does, it has a pretty okay base attack average, it has good energy recharge substat, And what makes the set really good is after damaging an opponent with elemental skill, the skill has an 80% chance to end its own CD, can only occur once every 16 seconds. Now, the 16 seconds is kind of irrelevant because once you pop your 2 skills, your odds are you're swapping off your character and going through your rotation. By the time you're done your rotation, this is back off cooldown, so you can use it with your characters then. The damage you get from having 2 skill activations normally is enough to offset the damage you lose by running DPS options, meaning that you get a ton of damage because you'll have really high ult uptime. You can self-battery your own units, or battery your team even better. If you're running like a Hydro unit with Sing Cho or Sac Sword, you can pop Sing Cho, go to that unit, give them the orbs, go back to Sing Cho, do it again, and get a ton of battery going. You can do all sorts of stuff like that. And with any of the Sac weapons, to the point where I was even running Sac Sword or Sac Greatsword Bindo whenever the Primo Vishuts first got into, or the Geo Vishuts first got into Abyss on the first part of floor 12 because she was so good at doing it, and just the parry itself dealt so much damage, and double proc of the parry was doing insane work. The Sac weapons, the Sac weapons series is so insanely broken powerful that they have to actually balance characters around this, because if a character can't abuse this, they absolutely will. You can, I promise you, I'm going to be trying to use this with Ayato when he comes out. I'll throw a Sac Sword on him, see exactly how good it works, although I doubt it's needed because he has such high uptime on his skill. But there's so many things that just make this weapon so broken, and they have to constantly balance units around the Sac series. Next up, we have what many people refer to as the Booba Blade, Mistsplitter Reforged, coming in at number 2. Now, why is this weapon number 2? Because it does so much. It has a very high base attack. It has pretty good crit damage. Nothing crazy, but pretty damn good crit damage as a substat. And it gives you up to 40% elemental damage bonus. 40% from R1. Obviously, that doubles with R5, but this weapon is so good that whenever I just got 2 of them by summoning on the banner, I never refined it, even being a whale. You can see I refine almost everything. I didn't refine Aquila Favoni because this weapon's fantastic. Also, it just has a pretty useless base stat. But I genuinely got both up to 90, and I keep them R1 because this weapon is so good. I can use it on so many different characters. It is a very strong weapon. And I can promise you, this weapon is probably what I'll be recommending people for Ayato because it is just so damn good. This weapon to me is just a heavy DPS stat stick that can just go on any future sword user that comes out that's a DPS sword user. It just makes it to where a lot of other weapons just kind of become irrelevant. And it is such a strong weapon that to me just like brute forces its way into number 2. But in the end, it really doesn't have anything on our number 1 because our number 1 is just the ultimate stat stick. And now for my number 1 weapon in the game overall is a weapon that has been around actually since the launch of the game. Now this is going to shock some people, and some people may disagree with me, but for just overall stats that you get out of this weapon, it is insanely powerful. So I'm talking of course about the Skyward Harp. What the Skyward Harp does, if you guys don't know, it has one of the highest base attacks in the game at 674 with a amazing 22.1% crit rate substat, and its passive is increases crit damage by 20%, hits have a 60% chance to inflict a small AoE dealing 125% physical attack damage, can only occur once every 4 seconds. The real value in this weapon is actually that crit damage passive, because what it means is it means that this weapon, as well as having one of the highest base attacks in the game, also, whenever it's R5, it can have up to an 82.1% crit value. So it's a 674 base attack weapon with an 82.1% crit value. And that's completely discounting the second passive, which at R5, it has a 100% chance to proc a small AoE dealing 125% physical attack damage once every 4 seconds, while almost every single bow character right now cannot use AoE or cannot use physical from it, but everyone can take full advantage of just a crit damage. It is one of the few weapons I don't have, because for weapons like that, especially since it's in a general banner, you'd kind of have to just pull it off the general banner, because I'm not summoning for it, because there's To me, there's more specified options, but I cannot deny how good this weapon is. The Skyward Harp has to be one of the strongest pure stat sticks in the game. It is an insanely powerful weapon that is just virtually universal on any DPS. It's just a absolute insane stat stick to just make any character absolutely cracked. And it's something that I don't think we're going to see another replica again very soon of, just because of how good it is. I'm pretty sure MiHoYo would be smoking some good stuff if they made another weapon very comparable to the Skyward Harp, especially for, like, imagine like a polearm that had 22% attack with up to 40% crit damage as a substat. That weapon's crazy. So that's my top 5. Let me know what you guys think. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with this because a lot of my weapons are either very specialist-centric or not very new, and everyone's always like, the new weapons are so cracked. They're just very, very niche in how they function, and for a niche weapon to be damn good, it has to be an insane weapon in that niche. And while there are very, very good options, I don't think any of them are like crazy, insane broken that to the point where they cannot be replaced by other weapons, except for maybe Engulfing Lightning. That's why I put it on the list, because it's so strong in its niche. But as far as it goes with my list, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching as always. Catch you guys in the next one. Peace.